nobody takes ideology seriously. Who cares about it? It's abstract. It's I mean, today the official ideology, let's be clear, at least in the West, is what? It's some kind of a generalized hedonism, no? It's not sacrifice yourself to it, have a good life, realize your true self, and so on. That's why I think Dalai Lama is so popular in the West. He perfectly works as the secret message of his spiritual enlightenment is a little bit of enlightenment will make you even a better businessman, more successful lover, and so on and so on. So that's clear, but so the idea is that the situation is cynical today. There are good reasons for it. My formative experience in ideology was one of the formative experiences. 91, 92, I remember, in Germany, after reunification, in East Germany, there were some skinheads who were beating some Vietnam or Turkish people, and then they were interviewed, and it shocked me what I heard there. They started with the usual reasons, no, either ideological ones, like, oh no, they are foreigners in our culture, primitive, or more brutal ones, like they are stealing our jobs, or even more brutal ones, they get on my nerves, it makes me feel good to beat them. But interestingly enough, at the end, they all started to talk almost like that split in Stalinist victims. One of them said, looking into the camera, asked why did he beat the Turkish workers or Vietnamese. You know, when I was young, I lacked the proper maternal love, I lacked paternal authority, and so on. They all of a sudden started to talk like social theorists. This should be cynicism at its purest. Like, it's no longer, as Marx thought, they don't know that they are doing it, but they know what they are doing it, and they are doing it. So the idea is, in this case, criticism of ideology is no longer operative. People know you don't prevent things happening through enlightenment. What do I mean by this? You know that old Goebbels story, which is not even true about Goebbels, that he said, whenever I hear the word culture, I pick up my gun. You have two further variations of it. There is the variation from a Godard film, where a cinema producer says, whenever I hear the word culture, I pick my checkbook, and so on, this one. And then you have the pathetic leftist version. Whenever I hear guns, I reach for culture. The idea being, interpretation can change things. Is this really over? I don't think so. Why? Because I claim that today, the predominant, with this, if I may conclude now, I'm really at the end. Today, ideology is no longer functions what I'm tempted to call as the symptomal mode. It's no longer that you live a lie and then here and there through symptoms the repressed returns. If this type of ideology is a general lie where details betray it, I claim today's functioning of ideology is more and more a fetishist one. Fetish is not a moment of truth which disturbs the general lie. Fetish is a small lie which enables you to confront the truth. Because what is effectively a fetish? Let me give you a simple, but not simple, it's tragic example which really happened to a friend of mine. His wife died of breast cancer. It was absolutely traumatic for him, and we, his friends, were all terribly shocked. Like, he was able to talk normally about it. We didn't have to pretend, no, let's not talk about it. He talked about the wife's last moment very coldly, and then we discovered what's going on. Whenever he was talking about his dead wife, he was playing with a small, how do you call it, hamster. That was his fetish, a kind of a stand-in for the wife. Through this fetish, he was able to accept rationally that the wife is dead, but to put it in traditional terms, block totally the emotional or existential weight of it. He just, in a cold, impersonal way, admitted it, but blocking all the symbolic impact of the fact. The proof of it is that when half a year later the hamster died, he immediately tried to kill himself and was hospitalized and so on and so on. And what I claim is that this is how ideology today functions more and more. Ideology is that small hamster that we all have. It can be, I don't know, Oriental spirituality or whatever. You know, this is why I think that nobody can really be a total perfect cynic. Every cynic has this hamster, no? This private point where he pretends to be authentic or whatever you want. There is a short story by my favorite detective writer, Patricia Highsmith, which is wonderful. Patricia Highsmith. It's called Button, about a guy who lives with a child who is total mongoloid, his life is ruined. Then one night he goes out, desperate, on the streets of New York, finds a helpless, homeless man, beats him to death, tears off his button, returns home, and from that time on he was able to endure his life, take care of his son, because the button was the fetish, like once I did strike back. And the button was there as a kind of a fetish. And that's the problem. So the message is, I would say, rather optimistic here. Let's not be too desperate. I mean, theory can do its job. And if I may, just with the final joke, provoke you, in this sense, I am a Leninist. Which Leninist? We have a nice obscene joke from my youth. Maybe some of you, if you are old enough, also know it. We have all in our classes, when I was young, very young, still communist regime, this famous Lenin's advice to children what to do. No, learn, learn, and learn. Okay, the joke goes, maybe you know it, I'm sorry. They asked Marx, Engels, and Lenin, what would you prefer to have, a wife or a mistress? Marx, as a conservative, says a wife. Engels, more hedonist, said a mistress. Lenin said, I want both. Everybody was shocked. My God, Lenin is supposed to be ascetic. What does it mean? He's a secret hedonist. They asked him, but why? Lenin said, so that when you are with so that you can say to your wife that you are with a mistress, and you can say to the mistress that you are with your wife. Then they asked him, okay, but what do you do? And then Lenin said, you guessed it, you learn, learn. And this exactly is what we should do today, I claim. From all sides around, they try to blackmail us through charity. You know, what's the standard ideology today? I hate it. In America, it's very popular. This rhetoric of emergency state, like, for example, my God, so often I heard this in the United States, something giving a talk where there is a sentence like, for every word that I read to you here, 10 children died in Africa. Or, if you're a feminist, for every sentence that I read her, one woman was raped on our street, and so on. I think this is a deeply reactionary attitude. The message is, do something, don't think. The message is this false post-ideological one. Don't even try to understand, just do, let's do something. No, I think that what we need more than ever today is to withdraw and to think. We should really, like Lenin in the joke, reject wife and mistress. That is to say, if wife stands for official career, if mistress stands for false transgression, which is very fashionable today. Like this was my problem, for example, in England, when, this is the example of the mistress logic, when there were a couple of years ago big demonstrations against Iraq war. Millions on the street, the greatest demonstrations, so everybody was satisfied, and that was problematic for me. The leftists were satisfied. You see, we brought millions to the street, we showed those in power. What is it? The mystery is that those in the government, Blair and so on, were no less satisfied. Because on the one hand, they could say, you see what a democratic country we are. On the other hand, they knew that they can simply ignore it. They didn't care for it. The best answer was given here by Bush. When he visited London at that point, and a journalist asked him, what do you think about big demonstrations against you? He said, I am so glad about those demonstrations, because he said, you see, that's why we are going to Iraq. So that something like this can happen also in Iraq. So everybody was satisfied. I think that a lot of leftism today is this kind of empty protest, how should I put it? You protest not only although you are secretly aware that it will have no